Welcome to the new course of API development using NestJs. In this course, we will be developing a RESTful API using a new framework of JavaScript, which is known as NestJs. It has been launched in the industry for about 2 to 3 years, but it is relatively new to the other compared frameworks, and it is very robust and easy to develop. So, moving forward towards the course outline. As you can see, we will cover the basic introduction of the API, introduction to the RESTful API, API development, best practices, basic setup of Node.js, basic setup of Postgres, running project using client PG admin and the type ORM along with the NestJS. So this will be our course outline for this particular course. Now moving forward towards API is are actually the constructs that made available in programming language to allow developers to create complex functionality more easily. So it means that it's just a particular way of coding on which other developers can use and utilize your functionality while using your APIs. APIs are just endpoints, or you can say functions that help other developers to achieve some goals on an abstract level without going deep into the knowledge. So API is just a program that helps other programmers to do what actually the current program is doing. So it will just create an abstraction layer over that, and it will just allow them to call those particular endpoints and do that particular functionality. As an example, whenever we use the API of Google, we don't know what Google is doing behind the scenes, but we just send that API towards Google, and it resolves the location thing or anything that you want to do accordingly. So that's how APIs work. Initially, there were a lot of types that were used using APIs development that were actually, like SAML and all that with the different response types. And currently, we will be reading about the RESTful API, which is an architectural style for an application program API that we generally write using HTTP request, in which we will use get, put, post, and delete request accordingly, and in that we will be using JSON as a response type. All of the related links I will share in the description, so you can read out all of these basics accordingly. Moving forward towards the next thing. Now I will just check the node version that I have installed in my system. As you can see in my system, there are multiple node versions I'm doing this using NVM. I will share the NVM link also. Currently I'm switching towards my latest version, which is 18 point something. So this is the LTS version of node. And now this is the NVM installer that I was talking about. As you can see, you can just go there and download that particular release, and just run it in your system, and it will allow you to maintain different node versions in your system. So I will share this link also. Once my node version is confirmed, I will go towards the directory in which I need to create a project, as you can see, and I will just create a empty folder there with the name nest dash js dash course. Okay, so this is just a basic thing that you can do in your system also. Now as we are setting our project, I will move to the NestJS website just to let you guys know how you can start with the documentation. Once you open the documentation, it just introduces the NestJS framework. As you can see in the image or in the browser that I have opened it, NestJS is a framework for building efficient, scalable Node.js server-side applications. It uses progressive JavaScript, okay, and is built with fully Typescript, and it is not a basic JS framework, so that is a good thing. Now moving forward, you can see that it is further using Express or Fastify, so you can either choose while setting it up. So now we will move towards the setting up of the project, but before that you need to install NestJS CLI in your system. So for that, all of the commands are given on the documentation, but I will still share in the description for setting up the project. So if you see, for the first step of for the first step on the left side of this overview, you will see the commands. Here you can see that it is giving the NestJS CLI globally, so that you can utilize that CLI for creating your latest project and even run the NestJS commands in future for creating particular modules for that. So we will run this globally in order to install it in our system. So I will just paste it here and run it. After waiting for a bit, it will be installed. Similarly, once it is installed, we will move towards setting up of the new project. For that, the command is given with nest new project name. So what I will do, I'm just zooming it in so that you guys can see more easily. So I will just run the new command, nest new, and my project name. Okay, so my project name here is nest Postgres. As you can see, it is taking a bit to install. So yeah, now I think it is installed. Now we go towards the next new project, and this is the master branch. And if I open the code in the VS Code, you can see the structure of the code that Nest has come with. Now this is the source folder in the NestJs, right? And moving forward, we along with the source folder, we have app controller module and service ended along with the main TS file. So we will review this structure accordingly. Now going towards the structure, you see there is a source folder. Inside the source folder we have a controller in which a basic controller is defined, which is a hello world controller. Once we go towards the service, you can see there is a service also defined here which returns a static uh, string, and there is also a module file in which nothing is import right now, as we don't have any other modules right now, but there is app controller and service here. So we will just run it and test whether the basic boilerplate runs or not. For that we will just run the command npm run start colon dev. This is the command present in package json, as you can see here, npm run start dev. And once we run this command, the project will be up and running. Now I have opened the postman. Along with the development, I will also allow you to learn these particular things in order to test the apis, because this is very important. Postman is a tool with which you can test your built apis. Here I will create a new collection. I will rename it to nestjs. Inside nestjs collection, we can add multiple folders and requests. I will directly add a folder here with name of user, because we will be just creating a user. So currently I have added app because this is the main route. Inside that folder I can create a request, that is a get type request, and we can define the url here as this is running on localhost colon 3000. So now if you see that when we check it on this particular url, it will give us the hello world string. Okay, so sorry, not on user but on direct url, because this is the app url. Now moving forward towards the main ts file, as you can see, it is running on 3000 port, and in this controller this is the basic route. And when it hits that route, the app service dot get hello function is running. So if I add app before that, you can see you can change the url accordingly of a controller. So now it will not work. If you add app, it will start working. It's just a reminder that you can change the controller name accordingly. Now I have reverted it, as we will be building a new particular user module. But before that, we also need to test how you can change the route name. So slash the new route name that I have added, which is first route. Now if I write here first first, it will hit that particular route. Otherwise, if you remove that, it won't work, because you have changed the route name specifically. Similarly, you can create multiple routes within the same controller. Like this is the second one, right? And I will change the function name because it will not allow me to create multiple functions there. Now here I will just create the get hello world different, so that we can differentiate between these two routes. So for that we will just add a parameter here, which will get the number on which route we are working right now, or you can say it is as a place. And we will just add this at the end of the string. So once we are calling from here, we can just send first, and from the second we can just call second, and we can see both of the routes would be running separately. So I would, after saving that, We will just go to check this on the Postman. There are some lending things that I'm fixing along with that, so don't worry about that. Now moving towards here, we will send it. You can see hello world first, and similarly when we send second, this is hello world second. So it means that we have successfully created two different routes within the same controller. So that's how you can do it. uh, in order to understand NestJS particularly and run work with Nest CLI and make your life easier, you need to go towards this particular link of CLI, where you can get the CLI overview, and also you will get all of the commands writing this particular command NestJS Nest help, where you can create, you know, everything from a command, like from you can create a module, you can create a service, you can create a resource. We can discuss these one by one in the advanced lectures, but for now we will just create a resource, which resource means that it will create a basic folder of a particular entity along with its controller entity and service file. I will create a resource here. Okay, to create a resource you need to run the following command: nest g res, and the resource name same, that would be user. Sorry for writing the wrong name. Now going back to the project setup, you will see that a new and user folder will be created along with its DTO's empty folder, and it is also, included inside the imports of app module, so that it is usable. Otherwise it won't be available for calling it in the API. Now you can see the basic credit is also created for it, so that is a very handy thing that you can use while you are using NestJS CLI. Now here you can see that we will create four basic routes, or you can say five, in which basic CRUD will be covered for a particular entity. Uh, so uh, so once I start it, you will see here that I am creating a new folder with the name of user. Yeah, so this is the user folder. After creating this folder, I will add four five requests that we need to build for a particular entity to create its CRUD. So I'm just copy pasting them, and I will be just changing the names accordingly. So here if you see inside the controller, we have a post request, a get request, patch request, and a delete request, and a single get request. So those are the five ones. I will change the names accordingly. So in the app, this is the Hello World API that we will be calling. So I'm just adding Hello World here. And now inside the user, that the first API would be, for getting all of the result of the user. Okay, so this is the user here. So we will copy paste and here, so that there is no, issue in the name or in the spelling. So once you call, you see it will give you all the users, and it is calling the right URL. Now changing it to post, it will create the user. So once you hit that URL, you will see it will create and add a new user. Similarly, I will wrap all of these here. I am also updating the name, so that it is created. I am just creating a norm for myself, that for getting all, I am just adding all. For creating, I am just adding the create name, and I will be using same naming strategy within this project when we will go towards the advanced topics or creating a new modules. So just keep it precise. I'm writing one to get one, and I writing update to update a particular user, and I'm just wrapping those things up. Now you see that I have created all of these particular postman request. I will close all of them and just rename all of them. So we have all of them wrapped here. Now we will just go towards the code and start developing the user CRUD APIs, and we will complete this code so that it is functional. But before that, we need to set up the type ORM, as we are using type ORM here in this project along with Postgres. So we will set up that first. To set up the type ORM, we will just go to the basic setup of how you can create entities and create the CRUD of out of it. So before that, NestJs provides us the recipes for the databases that we need to do. Here you can see that you can how you can create a particular entity for a user. So I will just copy and paste into our system before we move towards the setup of the type ORM. Now I have, as I have created the basic entity, I will just create a type ORM connection here, and similarly I will just copy all of the required parameters for the type ORM here. And I am importing type ORM module from a NestJs type ORM package, and within that, as we are using Postgres, I will write here Postgres, not PG, my mistake. And once we add Postgres here, we need to see whether we have installed Postgres or not. This is very pretty simple. I will share installing Postgres. There are some links for that. You can just follow them and run it, and once you run it, you will be setting up the password from that. I will create a separate video if needed. So once you open your Postgres, you will see that it has a particular username and password that you need to put in your code. So once you put that code into username and password into your code, you see the connection is created here. And if you and also if you see closely, I have also added the user entity importing from the user module, and within these entities array, so that Typeorm knows what are the entities that it needs to create directly into the database as we are synchronizing it. So once you do that, you will see in your database that it has been created. As you see that the user entity is created, that was a test entity I copied from NestJs website. Along with that, you also need to add the typeorm for feature module and import it there in that user module in order to use under the hood of typeorm within that particular module. Otherwise you might need to make it global. That is not a good solution. So you will just import typeorm for feature user, particular user that should be used within the service. And how will you use that, we will move forward to that. But before that, we are changing the entity according to our requirements. So we will create a name, email, password, and create it, add and update it at columns accordingly to for creating this entity. As you see that the now the entity has been created, and we will move forward towards the development of the first API of creating the user. As you know that the controller is dependent upon the service functions that will help the controller to create particular requests and complete them, and maybe get a particular entity. So for that, we need to inject the repository pattern inside our API services. What is repository? Repository is a pattern given by type ORM with which you can utilize all of the ORM functions upon a particular entity. You can create a repository within the constructor of a service. For example, if you are in the user service, you will create that inside the constructor of user service by using the inject repository from type ORM NestJs type ORM package. And once you do that, you need to give the name of the entity, not the name. You need to provide the class of the entity. As you can see, it is imported automatically. And once you are done, you will declare a private variable with the name of repository that you want to use. And you can define its type as a repository, because it is a repository type that you will be using. And within that, you can send a particular user type so that it knows that it is working on the user repository. So I'm just fixing this linting issues, and once that is done, I will show all of the functions that are wrapped within the repository. Now as the issue is resolved, if you go here and use this variable, this dot user repo, and click dot, and now you can see there are all of the functions that are available to create, delete, edit any edit on this particular you know entity. So once you want to create a data, you will just get it from the postman. And we are not defining details right now. I will convert it to any, because we will be working on DTO in upcoming lectures. So I will just create what is coming from the postman. So once we do that and go back towards the postman and run it and see whether it is, yes, it is created with an id. Now if we go towards our database, or you can see we will configure that, figure out that a new user has been created here. So I will just view all of the table, and you can see a new user has been created. So our create request has ran successfully. Similarly, we will wrap all of the add, edit, delete, update request within the same architecture. So here I will just go towards the repo and find all. The for that, we there is a function inside the repo to get this to find a particular, to find a particular entity. Now I will just write find here, and we will go back and test whether it is giving the result or not. Similarly, we will just add this dot repo, and we will get find one, and we will just give a where clause here that is coming from the front end side. So where, we will just create an object after where and add id there. So yeah, like that. And similarly, if you want to update a particular request, you can do that, but before we will just test the thing that we created. We This is the all request, and this is getting one, so this is the id one. And if I change the id, it will not give me the result, so it means that it is working with a particular id thing. Now moving towards the update and delete, we will just create two functions there. I'm just changing the names accordingly. So as you know, in the patch you can change a particular entity. So I am just changing the name here, and I will test it once I wrap up the function. So going back towards the code, I will just change the uh, you know function here, user repo dot update, and inside the there is no find and update. I was just searching it out, but we will just use update, and we will give the criteria here that on which you want to create an update. So I will just give an id here directly, and I will just add the dto that is coming from front end. Similarly, I will change this dto to be any, as we are not filtering anything, we are just creating a basic crud. So we will change that accordingly afterwards in our upcoming advanced lectures. So as you can see, we are sending the number from the controller, and it will be updated on the particular id that you are sending. So uh, once you run this here from here and go back to your database, or you can check from your all get all request maybe. So I'm just going to the database here, and I might refresh it. This is a very cumbersome thing, so what I generally do, I just create a query builder from the top. As you can see, I will just click the top left button, it will create a query builder. I will just drag the name of the uh, table and just write select query before that, rather than running those again and again. So I will just copy it and run it. Now you see the name has changed to update name here. So it means that our patch request has worked, and it has affected the database also. You can see from here that the data has been changed. Similarly, if you want to delete a particular data, you just need to send the id of that after the url like that, and once you run it here, so yeah, similarly you are getting the id here, so you will just delete here. So inside we use, there are two functions. Remove what it gets an entity, and it can get multiple entities to delete those entities. And but if you use delete option, it will get the id directly. So you can just write it down here inside the type rm. There is a delete query. Similarly, there is a remove query also. So we will see both of them and their uses. So you can see a delete query is different from remove. Delete query, the remove query gets the entities, and the delete query actually gets the ids. If we go down, yeah, just read it out, and moving forward you will see that the delete is different, it gets the ids, as you can see in the description. So we will be using IDs for now, so I will just use delete and I will send the ID here. So it will automatically match to the ID. If you have changed the ID name, you might need to send a complete object with ID colon ID or ID actual name. So I will just send the ID and it will detect the ID of the table. So you see now it is deleted. And now I am going to create multiple accounts and I will test it for you, so that we are sure that this thing is working fine. So this is an object. If I go to all, it is giving me all. Now I'm creating another one. I'm going to all, there are two, right? Now if you want to get one, you will not get one because one is not anymore there. So this is the second object or second user. This is the third user.
So
And this is
if you
for
want to update a user, you can just go to the database and see how many users are there. There are two users with an ID 2 and 3. So if you want to update a user 2 and change its name to this new update name, while you send the request, it will give you a confirmation here. And if you go to all user request and run it again, it will give you the user ID 2 and its updated name here. So that's how you can update a particular user. And if you want to delete a user, for example, you want to delete the user ID 3, so it will delete one, and if you go to all again, and it will only get the second user. So it means that our basic CRUD APIs are just working fine, and we have completed our basic setup of the project. Moving forward, we will review this code first of all, and move towards the relationship management and also authorization and authentication. So before that, we can review our code so that we can move forward easily. So going back to our folder structure, just to revise the lecture that we just finished right now, I will just give you an overview. So once we set up a project, we set up these particular folders. This is the dist folder, which means that it is running the build whenever you are creating, even in the watch mode, so that it is an optimized code that will run on the server. So this is the the build format, and it has JavaScript files, as you can see. So it's plain JavaScript. You can utilize this build on your production server whenever needed. So this is just for that, and this one I created for myself just to set up the editor configuration. So just ignore these two folders for now. Whenever you set up our project, it will give you this source folder. Within that source folder, these four files would be there along with the main ts. In main ts file, as you can see, it is listening to the port that we that is a default port. We will configure the environment afterwards, but just to let you know that it listens on this particular port. And this is our app module file that we discussed initially, having all of the dependent modules in it, and along with that, all of the root configurations that we will put here. One of them is right now the type ORM that we are using, and in future we will add all of those configurations that are globally usable. Similarly, we have an app controller that we just discussed in our lecture, and this resource we created has basic same strategies like services, module, and controller. And we are using our type ORM feature setup here for a particular entity. So this is the basic code review that we did, and I hope so that you guys understand for the basic part. Just wait for the upcoming lectures in which we will be discussing authentication, authorization, and along with that, the relationship management within the entities. And along with that, I will also cover up the DTO filtration and all that stuff. Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and like the channel. Thank you very much.